Hi, everyone, and thank you, Lauren, for handling a very, very good debate there. It's a question of all of you, jury and audience, deciding what you're going to do about the decisions that you've just seen. And what's really interesting is that the jury and the audience have diametrically opposite opinions. So the action point, the next step point, is that the UN is often accused of just being a talking shop. And up to this point this evening, the same accusation could be leveled against us because we've only talked about this. And what we need to do now is to talk about what we're going to do about it. So whether you have won or lost the argument within the jury, what I want you all to do now is to forget the Q&A facility, but to go into the chat facility and write up the action points that you think we should do about, the actions that we should take about this. And to start the conversation, if Ella is still awake in Addis Ababa, she was one of the ladies who helped us on the UN 75. So Ella, if you are there, come on and tell us what actions you think you would like to take as a result of tonight's debate.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Fabulous. Sorry, I was an audience member, so I couldn't get on to speak. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking part, the audience members, jurors, and our witnesses as well. It's been a long time in the process organising this, and we're so grateful for having you. And, you know, the next steps are super crucial to where we're going to take this and how this is actually going to affect policies and deliberative democracy moving forward. So we're talking about doing Model Citizens Assembly once every 2 months. I think our next one's going to be in March. So please do stay tuned in and we will keep you updated on everything that we're going to be doing. I think the next two we're going to look at is pandemic response and climate emergency as well. So everything that we've been doing leading up to this, and especially the event tonight, has given us so much to learn from. But as well, it's going to enable us to go forward, use this information. We're going to possibly do some blog posts, some podcasts, interviews. We would love to speak to any participants, jury members and audience members, and our witnesses as well for any feedback. Things that worked, things that didn't, to then go out with and use to raise awareness, to learn from. And we really appreciate that. So I think we're going to be sending an email out. If you have any time, we'd really appreciate some feedback. And yeah, it would be really great to use this as an example to recruit people and to engage people moving forward. We're also quite a creative team, so we're looking to do some either radio shows or short political theatre around the idea of citizens' assemblies, and we'll be using the process that we've gone through as inspiration to do that, and hopefully that will reach even more people. But yeah, again, thank you so much, and I'll pass back over to David. But those are our next steps, so we'll keep you posted. Thank you so much, everyone.
Rebecca is still with us, but what I would like to, I did ask her this question before, what we should do to up the ante on the TPNW. And of course, the big day is on the 22nd of January when it comes into force. Now, on that day, we should be telling you all about an event that's being held by the Humanity Rising program about the TPNW and its background. So that's a very interesting event, which I think happens at 4 o'clock GMT on that day. But also, Rebecca tells me that there's a plan to get everyone ringing their bells, church bells, handbells, any kind of thing, at noon on Friday the 22nd to welcome into force the TPNW. But as James said, there's this very, very strong argument, which NATO is advancing that says that actually the TPNW is a distraction. So as you think about the actions that you want to take, do think about how you can make that point, because obviously the thing is to write to your MP, and there is the fact that a majority of 355 MPs did vote for the renewal of Trident, which, as we've heard this evening, will cost anything from 100 billion to 200 billion to do. Now, do we really want our MPs to spend that kind of money on it? One way or another, it's not our decision, it's our MPs' decisions. So you've got to get them to talk about it. And up until this point, there hasn't even been a debate in Parliament about the TPNW and about the issues that we've been discussing tonight, which is something that you might want to write to your MPs about. And as well as doing citizens' assemblies, as we're talking about tonight, it would be, I think, really good to be able to force a debate in the House of Commons as soon as possible about this issue, because it's an awful lot of money, and it's really important to show Britain's considering the question that obviously has occupied the United Nations and the 122 nations that did vote for the TPNW. Let me see if we can bring up Bruce Kent, who's on our screens tonight and has been listening all the way through. And he, of course, has been campaigning against nuclear weapons all his life. So, Bruce, if you're there, come on and tell us what you think we should be doing and what your conclusions are from this evening's discussions. Well, while you're trying to bring him on, I can share screen and show you the website that does what Ella was talking about, the future Peace Child International Citizens Assemblies, where we're looking at the existential threats that threaten the survival of humanity. So these are the three threats that we're looking at. Probably the next one will be in March on the climate emergency. And on this website here, you can see we go through a lot of the background detail, the history of the climate change issue, with videos, with discussions, and so it's a website that I hope will be helpful to everyone. And the other one.
Oh, David, we've got Bruce with us now, I think. Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's go to Bruce, and I'll stop sharing.
Yes.
Well, it was a very interesting evening. Thank you all very much. And the organisers, I think, is absolutely brilliant. A lot of things puzzled me a great deal. I heard almost nothing about nuclear accidents, and we've had stacks of nuclear accidents. In 1983, we nearly had a world war, but saved by one man, etc. But on actual things we can individually do to make people more aware, well, there's all sorts of things. On our window here in the front room, we've got a poster talking precisely about the dangers of nuclear weapons and about the possibility of a treaty coming into force right in our room. We have discussions in our parish on the same issue, get people to wake up. I always wear a badge. Where's my badge? Here we are. Here's my badge. I always wear a badge. And people on the underground, when I was allowed in the underground, would stop and talk to me, say about it. I never fail if I see a letter in a local paper saying how the National Health Service is starved of funds. I always write, and sometimes I get in, to say that, well, we're spending 205 billion on nuclear weapons, further nuclear weapons. That would do something for the National Health Service. But those issues are not really brought up politically at all. It's unsafe in this country, which is quite biased on these things. Most of all, the argument I use all the time in this country is that we don't have an independent nuclear weapon. We don't have one. We have to borrow from the United States every year. We have to borrow another set of missiles on which to put our warheads. It's like having a motor car, but you have to borrow the wheels from Mrs. Smith down the road before you can drive the motor car. That's where we are. So we are best placed, I think, to start getting this treaty into the nuclear weapon world better than any other country. And I hope we will. And I hope people will use this program tonight just to talk about the issues, get the issues thought about. I'm not saying everybody's got to agree with me, but silence is no way of solving this massive international problem of weapons of mass destruction. So thank you very much for what you've given me tonight. I've given 2 minutes and I'll now shut up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. That's great. No, it is. This is why we wanted to do it, because none of us had really followed the TPNW discussions. And you were right, Bruce. We are incredibly well placed to make our position felt. And the question about whether or not it would break up NATO was very briefly answered by Rebecca. Of course it wouldn't, but what it might do if Britain did join the TPNW is to force NATO to actually get into the discussion of it, because this blanket boycott, which allowed only Austria as the only European nation to sign up to this, is not a good way of conducting citizens' discussions here in Europe. And I was very pleased to hear from Rebecca that actually the Dutch Parliament had insisted that the Netherlands government was an observer to the TPNW process. And so they were actually engaged. And although they came to the conclusion for reasons probably similar to the ones that James argued for not to vote against it, they were the one country that voted against the TPNW in the UN General Assembly. They were at least at the table. And the fact that Britain was not at the table is something that is a matter for regret, I would have thought, because I think the conversation that we've had tonight, certainly for me, I was undecided, still am fairly undecided. And luckily I didn't have to vote, but you all did. And it's very interesting that actually the jury that we had is closer to the British public's position, that they don't feel that the nuclear weapon should be gotten rid of, was where they ended up. So I feel that it's a bit of a dead heat. But Lauren, are any other ideas for action coming in through the chat that you want to refer to?
Yeah, I think we've got a couple of good ones. Just to clarify, I think someone said that Ireland and Malta have both ratified the treaty as well. So not just Austria, but yeah, not very many. So Sylvia said to encourage involvement and knowledge of the United Nations and General Assembly through UNA UK. Yeah, I think there are lots of ways we can try to increase citizens' engagement. David, can you see?
Yeah, I can see Paul Nash saying that the jury didn't vote to keep nuclear weapons. They just voted not to sign the TPNW.
Yeah.
Question. And sorry if I misled on that. Political theatre against, yeah, all of that is worthwhile. And of course, this is where Peace Child came in, Lauren. You know, we started Peace Child with a musical play about Russian and American children getting rid of their nuclear weapons. I think that the point that we did hear loud and clear is that both sides want this to happen. James feels that the MPT is the way to do it. And as he says, you know, it's quite understandable that there's frustration. But I think that frustration is something that we shouldn't just take out on our governments who fail to get us there. The frustration is that we haven't yet got rid of nuclear
we've got a couple of other action points here. So someone from the audience said to hold more citizens' assemblies to understand the best way to sway the stalemate. We had another person from the audience saying talk to and convince local politicians, religious leaders, other stakeholders like women's groups and community associations, etc. So is that convincing them to have conversations, I think? Someone from the audience has also said, I support political theatre in order to make the quite complicated information available. Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of us are on board with. Anything else to add, David?
Yes, I think the thing about local councils is Bruce mentioned that as well. Very important to mention that the international campaign against nuclear weapons, which Rebecca helped set up and which she is the first president of, has this thing called ICANN cities, which is local authorities that declare nuclear-free zones, and Brighton and Hove have done that. There are several nuclear ICANN cities across Europe, not very many here in the UK, but it's something that we can do on a local level to actually force for both treaties, getting local authorities to declare nuclear-free zones. And I think that that is something that would make it very hard to transport nuclear materials through the country. And I think this is the thing, as we've learned from Extinction Rebellion, you don't get anywhere by just sitting quietly on your hands and writing letters to your MP. You have to be very much more vocal and talk to everyone about it, because this is a challenging issue. And certainly we would encourage the Citizens' Assembly process, because I think hearing from both sides, I don't know what you feel, Lauren, but hearing from both sides tonight has been really instructive.
Thank you, David. Okay, before we sign off tonight, I'd like to first of all say that it's been an absolute honour to host this event today. Have we got anything else to add on that, David?
I don't think so. I think what I would say is that we shall write up our notes of this, and several people have asked if it's been recorded, and it has. So we'll write up our notes, review what's been said, and send you a report as soon as possible, along with the actions and next steps ideas that occur to us as we reflect on this evening's discussion. So thank you very much on behalf of Peace Child.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. And I think that now more than ever, with certain democracies around us, we see perhaps almost failing or crumbling around us, particularly in the US, we've seen over the last few days, or watched on in horror. I think that citizens' assemblies give us all a good opportunity to contribute to democratic processes, to watch them and to become more involved and more informed. Today I turned 18, so I can now vote, and becoming involved in democracy that way is just one way that we can continue to push these issues. And so after today, I'm even more optimistic that the fear and division that we see in these democracies failing, we see unity and hope being rising through processes like this and citizens' assemblies. So before we finish, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Fabrizio Hochschild and the UNA UK teams, to our two expert witnesses, James McCormick and Dr. Rebecca Johnson, to David for leaving the team that made today possible, and to Patricia Rogers, the Laser team, for helping us to promote this event, for Claire Banham for feeding your fantastic questions to me, Sebastian Dott for the algorithm that selected the jury, to Paul for his technical management, to Ella Donnelly and Toma Moran for their enthusiastic ideas, particularly in marketing and promotion. And finally to you, our wonderful jury and the audience.